Hi and hello, and thank you so much for tuning in. And if you are new, welcome to my channel. My name is Preeti Rao and I am both a real estate and a mortgage broker for close to 20 years. Now, I'm sure that people living in Toronto have already received the new bill that was passed some time ago called the Vacancy Tax bill. This was, I think, in 2023. This was sent out to a lot of people and it put them in shock. In today's video, I will give you the breakdown of everything you need to know about this Toronto's tax. So let's discuss. But before we dig into the video, please hit the like, share, subscribe button and the bell icon. It gets me motivated to keep you up to date with everything real estate. So when it comes to buying a home or a property in Toronto, apart from the basic closing costs, which have tripled over the years, you also pay what's called as a double land transfer tax, the municipal tax and the provincial tax. Now it's the vacancy tax. And if you cannot prove that the property is actually occupied, you are stuck with this bill. Even though the actual vacancy rate in Toronto back then was under 1%, everybody loves to talk about the fact that they hear that condo buildings are half vacant, or there are houses on certain streets and different areas that no one has been living in for a few years. And people were hoping that, okay, fine, this tax will make others rent out their properties, or at least a little bit more in supply. So I get as to why they introduced this tax. So the question is, what does this tax really mean? Old property owners will be required to self-declare the status of their residential home each year. This will determine their home's occupancy status and whether the vacant home tax are actually payable. Nothing further is required on property owners living in their own homes. Okay, so at the beginning of the statement, I said self-declare. So what this means is that you as a landlord have to self-declare every single year if your property is going to be vacant or not. Now, I do not know exactly how they are doing it in Toronto, but I know that in BC, if you don't declare, they just assume that the property is vacant. And that caused a lot of issues. It did cause a lot of issues in Toronto too. So if you do have several properties, make sure when you're declaring, you're doing it on time and you're not missing the deadline date provided by the city. Now, if a property owner declares that their home is vacant, they have to pay a 1% tax each year based on the assessed value of your property. Now, everywhere the assessed value of the property, lucky for us, is substantially lower than the actual market value of the property. And there are sometimes a very large gap between the assessed value and the market value. So basically, whatever your assessed value is, you are paying $1,000 for every $100,000 in value. The next point here is that the tax is based on last year's status of the property. So this tax started in 2023, but it's going back. So if your property was vacant in 2022, you have to fill the tax form at the beginning of 2023. According to the city's definition of vacant is if your property has been unoccupied for over 6 months of that calendar year. Now, this is not applicable to your principal residence, only investment properties or secondary properties. Now, this is something set out by the government, so there are several exemptions for this tax. So let's go over those right now. If the owner of the property passes away in the last year, they would be exempt. If there's any major renovations or redevelopment of that particular property, they would be exempt. The property owner is in some type of a medical care, or if there's any limitations because of which you couldn't actually rent out the property for whatever reason, you would be exempt, but you have to apply for that. There was a transfer of legal ownership during the year, like for example, you sold the property during that year. Even if it was vacant at the beginning of the year, they made it sound like you're going to be exempt because you're probably already paying capital gain taxes on that anyways. And the last one, if there's a court order for some reason that you can't physically be in the property or rent it out, then you are exempt as long as you can provide them the proof. They were also very clear that principal residences can be left unoccupied for a large period of time, basically telling all the snowbirds out there that you can have a principal home here in Toronto and you're going to be safe. Now again, for the snowbirds, they said periods of time. They didn't give a specific time. So it's a good idea to keep in mind, if you travel a lot, to keep an eye open for any rule changes. Now, I don't necessarily agree or think it's going to make housing more affordable, but they did say that all the funds they are collecting every single year are going towards initiatives to try and bring more affordability. Honestly, I really hope they stick to what they say and what they're actually going to do. And here's to hoping that this could actually help the average person get into a home. Now, if an investor owns several properties and is leaving them vacant, and this 1% tax is going to make them rent it out, that's a good thing, right? That's probably going to bring way more rental inventory. It's not going to really help the resale market, other than if people just don't want to pay these taxes and then decide to sell the property. But I think that's going to be a very small percentage, because most investors are actually in for the long haul. Honestly, I really wish the government would look at ways to bring supply to the market instead of just taxing as much as they possibly can, because from the time it has started, it's shown that it's not really working. I just don't think it's going to have the outcome that the average person is looking forward to. It's not going to make housing more affordable. It might bring a few more rentals on the market, but that's about it. So tell me what you think about this rule in the comment section below. And if you find this information useful, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. If you still don't know who I am, just go check my rating on Google and read my client reviews. Join me next week for more information. Until then, you stay safe. And thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to call me, because I hold the key that opens the door to your dream home.